were you managing your life and what you were doing with balancing making money versus doing, different things? Like how was that working for you?
I mean, we were happy because once we started doing music videos, um, we started making more money, and so we were like, oh, okay. So we started out doing stuff for Cold Chillin', and then two or three other labels saw what we were doing for Cold Chillin'. So yo, can you do what y'all did for Biz Marquee? Can y'all do that for me? Or what y'all did for Kane? Can y'all do that for me? What you guys did with G Rap? Can you do that for me? And so it started to become, and not just in New York. So we were going to LA. First time I went to LA was to do a video. I can't remember who it was for, but I remember Steve Rifkin, who started Loud Records, was a promoter. He was like a record guy. He would take you to the radio station. If you had a record out, he'd be like, yo, I got, Ice-T here and Ice-T's new record, and so somehow or another, he knew I was coming to LA, and, it's like, yo, Ralph, let's hook up. And I said, all right, no problem. And I got there and he was like, yo, you want to go to Ice-T's house? And I was like, yeah, all right. And I'm in LA. I don't know anything. And but I saw Ice-T's album covers, and I saw, Darlene with the gun behind her back, and I was like, yeah. And then I got there and Darlene was like in the kitchen. I was like, yo, this is crazy right now. But that was where this music videos and hip hop took me, and so you started meeting other people in other areas. You started going to Detroit, and we started going to Miami to do videos and see the scene. We started to see that there was a scene going on in all of these areas, and that was great.
Yes, I had recently mentioned to Daddy O that when they did Stetsasonic did the Miami bass song, that seemed like a great experience, and he laughed. He said it was because he was
Yeah,
thinking of all the fun they had on tour and stuff.
yeah, because we would hear about the guys going out on tour, but we weren't artists, so when we got to go out, like I remember we did we were shooting I think a Keith Sweat video. This is in the 90s by this time, and it was like no late 80s, early 90s, and Keith Sweat, Belle Biv DeVoe, I can't remember who the other artists were, but we were like in El Paso, Texas. We were going to all these different places because we were on the tour with them, you know, and um, and that was pretty cool because I had never been to any of these places. I was like, this is pretty cool. So you got to spend the day in some of these places, and you shot the videos or you did the production at night, and but you got to feel out the scene, and internationally too. Like I did, Super Cat, Ghetto Red Hot, which was a crossover kind of dance hall record that was put out in the 90s. And I went to Super Cat's home, in Jamaica, and he took me to all of the underground Jamaican, spots, and I was like, this is crazy, and I learned a lot, just from, not only was I working, but I was learning, about, these areas that I'd heard about, but I'd never seen it.
Well, the Ghetto Red Hot, that's one of the best beats probably ever.
Yeah.
The video version of the song, it's mind blowing. That beat,
Yes.
very different from the original version too.
Yeah,
Uh,
very different, very different. Super Cat, we worked with him, and we worked with, then later on, I worked with Shaggy on his first productions, because Shaggy, we used to have this club, the Arc in Brooklyn, and a lot of the footage that I, put up, especially like Early Mary and, Jodeci and groups like that, that was shot at this place called the Arc in Brooklyn, which we did regular Sundays or Saturdays nights there. And Shaggy was like a regular, like, because that's a,
are you talking like Oh Carolina or before that?
yeah, Oh Carolina. Well, not even, well, Oh Carolina was the first video we did for him. Um, but he had like this crew of him, Red Fox, Screechy Dan, and Baja Jed. There was a whole little crew of them. And actually Red Fox and Screechy Dan were like the most popular. And Shaggy and the other guys were kind of coming up. And then, Shaggy did Oh Carolina, and that's when Shaggy really kind of catapulted and started taking off and getting more popularity. but it was a whole crew of guys from that area that were, and they would come to the club. They would be at the bar. And then they, like, oh, we want to do a show, can we get on? I'm like, yeah, let's do it. Same thing with like Tracy Morgan, some of these comedians, they would come to the club and, let me get 15 minutes, Ralph. I got a little routine I want to do. And, I'd see Tracy Morgan in clubs. He was hilarious. I'd be like, yeah, man, no problem. And Tracy would get on and do a 15-minute set. And, and this was all, like before they were on, Saturday Night Live and all of that kind of stuff. Same thing with Chris Rock. All of these dudes were, just, well, Ralph, you got an audience. I know you. I'm gonna come through. I'm like, all right, no problem, come through. It wasn't no money. I didn't have to pay them. They just wanted to practice their routines, and see how the crowd reacted to them.
Gotcha. And with that too, I was always intrigued, since you had so many different things going on the show, was the kind of the PSAs, I guess. So what made you and why did you guys start doing those?
Well, that was from the beginning, because I felt like we were on a public broadcasting channel, and that we had a responsibility to, talk about learning. I always felt like that. That's from me, working in Job Corps. Like, yeah, we can have fun and all that stuff, but let's drop some information, on the show. So I would have, like I can remember the Public Enemy joints, like to go vote and stuff like that, from that Def Jam made. And then they started making PSAs. Like in the beginning, all the PSAs were kind of generic. Then they started making them with hip hop artists in it, like LL Cool J might do one, or Run DMC might do one, and it's funny because I was watching this thing last night, and it was on crack in the 80s. And actually Dane is a picture of Dana in one of the scenes with some artists. I can't remember who it was, or maybe it was some dealer from Brooklyn. And and then they cut to Nancy Reagan with this "Just Say No," and it was, but that's what it looked like, like that was like, I mean, that's how it was. If you grew up in that particular time, all of this craziness is going around. Your friends, probably a guy that Dana knew growing up, is a big time drug dealer, and he wasn't, 2 years ago. Now he's a big time, but
Brown.
right. And then they wanted to hang out with a guy like Dane, who's a celebrity, and that's what would happen, like all of these guys would come to the club, and I knew they did something just because of the gold chains and the stuff that they wore. It was expensive, but I didn't know. Right. I didn't know exactly what they were doing. But that's what the whole scene looked like. It was that, and it was guys getting money in the street. It was, the girlfriends who were, getting the benefits of them getting money. It was, the celebrities. It was the NBA players. That's when, like the New York Knicks players would show up at your party. You don't see that nowadays, like they're like, don't go there. They have select places to go. But back then, like Charles Oakley was coming to my parties, and what you call them, Williams, that played for the Nets. All these dudes were just popping up and be like, yo, they were hanging out, and that's what a hip hop party looked like back then. I remember the girl from the Olympics. She was a gymnast. Oh man, I can't remember her name right now. And she was at like the parties every week. And I was like, yo, she just won the gold medal in the Olympics. Yeah, I was like, but that's what hip hop looked like, because people wanted to be around what was cool, and hip hop parties were cool.
Yes. And another thing, not related to Video Music Box, that I always enjoyed was Juice. So with that, I know I had always remembered and always been curious, because that was the first time I really saw your name on a movie thing. Mm-hmm. So what did you do with Juice?
So one of the girls that worked on Juice in the finance department was our producer, Lionel and I's producer, and girl named Sabrina. And so Sabrina was, she would every once in a while would go away, and because she had a friend of hers that did movies, and she was like, "Look, Ralph, I'm working on this set, a new video, new production, and they need your help. So I was like, okay, what's going on? And she said, you just need to come in and meet with them. So I went in, and the movie was Juice. They hadn't started production yet. It was pre-production. They were just kind of still writing. And they had an office somewhere in the west side of Manhattan. And they were like, look, Ralph, all the hip hop stuff. This is the script. Tell us if it makes sense. So I started looking at it, and it was like, what was Juice? 92, right? 1992. So I'm looking at it, and it's like the words felt like it was the 80s when I first read. I was like, nah, this doesn't sound like the 90s right now. They don't say that anymore. So I started so it's like, okay, so you could do that. And how much do we have to pay you? So I've never worked on a movie before. So I'm like, let me kind of think it out. But, like, what's my title? And I was like, well, you can be a consultant. So I was like, all right. So, but I looked at the end of movies after that, and I, like, consultant didn't have too much props. I could tell. I was like, nah, I gotta be something else. So I gotta be something else. So I said, well, I'll be associate producer, and they were like, all right, that's fine. And so that was the first thing I did, is I kind of went through the script, and, and Ernest Dickerson, that was his first movie that he ever directed. He was a cinematographer. He did all those classic Spike Lee movies, and he worked for Spike, and now he's broke off. This is his first joint. So, I didn't expect that, nobody knew what he could do. We knew he could shoot a camera. We knew that much, but we didn't know from a directorial standpoint, was he going to get it? And so, yeah, so that's how I got involved in that. And then they were trying to get in contact with all of these hip hop artists to be in the movie, and nobody was calling them back because, we'd had, some bad relationships with Hollywood and hip hop. It really wasn't, they didn't trust Hollywood too much. And so once people knew that I was there in the office and I was working with them, they were like, oh, you working with them? And I was like, yeah. She said, oh yeah, they've been calling you for weeks. And I said, I'm here, come through, it's legit, they got money, you're gonna get paid, whatever. And so I remember, like, Queen Latifah, I got her to come, and then she bought Tretch, and, and then people started hearing, and it was like, oh, Ralph is over there, and so people started coming and became, like, it was legit. And I also got the Bomb Squad, I called them, who did all those Public Enemy records. And so either Hank, one of the Shockley brothers, like, look, it's legit, they want to get you guys to do the soundtrack. And then they came in, and then it just took off, instant classic. Yeah.
One of the best rap soundtracks ever too.
Yeah, dope soundtrack, dope.
And it's funny you say about the appearances of the artists, because I remember EPMD's at like the bar or something one time, right? And I was like, what?
Well, that was the thing too. It was like, like, where do they fit in at, and they'll be at the bar, like, they're walking down the block, they're in the laundry, which was kind of cool.
Yes. Well, man, Ralph McDaniels, we really appreciate your time and, the opportunity to speak with you. Is there anything you want to tell people about that you're doing now that's important right now?
Yeah, follow me, follow my nonprofit, because we're all about preserving the culture. Like everything that we talked about today, I'm glad that you asked me, because this is part of preserving the culture and not letting it die. We've been part of this from day one, and our nonprofit Video Music Box Collection is all about that. Is creating an archive and creating a database where people can go, and educators from schools to universities to museums to libraries, and use what we have to teach kids now how it was back in 1983 or 1993 or whenever. And then kids can remix it and do whatever they want to do with it. At least, we keep the culture alive. And that's been part of the problem with Black music and Black culture in general, is that it's often forgotten and things are skipped over. And we don't want that to happen with hip hop. So videomusicboxcollection.org, that's my page. That's my site, and at Video Music Box on everything else.
Well, there it is. Well, I appreciate your time, and thank you very much for coming through to Unique Access.
Thank you, man. Great job, too.
Be sure to check out the History of Gangster Rap by Soren Baker. He's official.
History of Gangster Rap features exclusive interviews with Ice-T, Snoop Dogg, MC Ren, the D.O.C, and dozens of others. The History of Gangster Rap, a definitive look at how Los Angeles changed rap forever.
In Los Angeles, the streets definitely set the tone of the hip-hop music.
A 19, I got a $50,000 car.
My whole angle always was, I'll be street, but I will always tell you the horrors that go along with this life.
It would be penalties and casualties for just wearing the wrong color in somebody's neighborhood.
And once gangster rap made it from the streets to the TV, the genre exploded.
With Fab 5 on your TV back with NWA.
Yo MTV, it just catapulted us from being local heroes to national gangbang rappers.
The history of gangster rap discusses it all from 1980 up till today.
It's always gonna be shit happening in the streets. You know what I mean? So it's always gonna be something to talk about.
The history of gangster rap in stores now.